Since we last regrouped and you were in the agency world. So to get started, just tell me more about the Aesop brand and what it has been like to be with a soap, hand sanitizer, and lotion brand over the last year when hygiene and hand washing and moisturizing has become really top of mind.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to part of the session today. And hopefully you can hear me okay.
Absolutely. It's great.
Right. Yeah. So last time we spoke, I was agency world. And I've had the privilege of working with Aesop now for just shy of 2 years. Those of you that don't know Aesop, so primarily known as a skin, hair, and body care organization, founded in Melbourne about 34 years ago, 1987. And I guess we pride ourselves over those years in terms of producing products that are meticulous in detail, not only of our products, but also the environment in which you buy our products, and the efficacy of our products. That's 100% important to us, the efficacy of the product, and not necessarily following any fads in terms of product development. And also with that sensory pleasure in mind in terms of what our products also do apart from nourishing your skin and body. And I guess we see ourselves as being quite a generous, humble, and often slightly irreverent brand. And I guess generosity and humility comes in a variety of different ways and is interpreted differently by different customers. So generosity in terms of, in store, our consultants are never intrusive and give customers the time and space to wander through the store and browse, but always generous with their time when customers need some guidance or demonstration, which we were famous for pre-COVID, demonstration of our products at our famous sinks in stores. And customers often comment on the generosity of our sample giving, for example. You never walk out of an Aesop store without a selection of samples that are based on the conversation or the products that you bought from that consultant. And digitally, you get a sense of that generosity in that we are as generous with our content that is not necessarily a product sell piece of content. And whether that be Spotify playlists that we provide to customers to enhance their use of our products or their daily lives, or the fact that we even have a website that is purely dedicated to the architecture of our stores, of which we're very, very proud. And humble because, we've always been a vegan brand. We've never tested on animals. We've not necessarily made a song and dance about that. We have our Leaping Bunny certification in terms of animal testing beginning of last year. But again, it's just something that is inherent in the brand, and just we felt was always the right way of being a brand and giving back to and treading lightly on the environment. And irreverent because, and that comes across in some of our products. So our famous and very popular Host Poo Drops, which is quite a tongue-in-cheek product, but also how we tackle from a creative and copy perspective. Some of those would have become quite salesy periods in the marketing calendar. So how we tackle Valentine's Day and Black Friday, which we don't directly engage with, but do it in a very irreverent and tongue-in-cheek way. Mm-hmm. So I joined just before COVID, so back end of 2019, and because I sit in the global team, so I look after CRM globally for the business. But obviously, my remit is really to make sure that I give the regions across the world the tools and resources that they need. So I've witnessed firsthand how COVID has moved across the world and has impacted different regions and different markets at different speeds and in different ways. And obviously, it's been a terrible experience globally that has impacted people across the world in terms of hardship and suffering. And I'm sure that everyone on this call has been touched in some way by it. But I guess the one common message that governments backed by the WHO have consistently talked about is the importance of hand washing. And so we've been really lucky because we play in that space. We have products that service that need, and alongside hand washing goes the need to hydrate your products as well. So we obviously have hydrators, moisturizers that service that. So we've, to a certain extent, been lucky that we've offered those products. And then of course, as customers, as consumers and humans, people have spent more time at home, cocooned, they've spent a bit more money in making those environments a slightly nicer place to work and live. So our fragrances and candles, our room fragrances and candles have played a part in that. So I guess we've been lucky in that respect, and and even just the mundane rituals of hand washing and cleansing have almost become rituals and moments that you want to enjoy a little bit more. So the feel and the smell of our products has really been a real benefit to us commercially.
Absolutely. I mean, I actually know that I have some Aesop soap, so I definitely can take pleasure in those moments. How do you, obviously, it's good for the company to be doing well. How do you market to consumers when you're, with a language, especially as an irreverent brand that sometimes used to being tongue in cheek and making these kinds of jokes? How do you, kind of have a soft tone when obviously there's a reason, it's not a great reason that we're having to wash our hands as much, it's this sort of global pandemic.
So I guess it's just being, I think it's partly it's being empathetic to our customers. Mm-hmm. So even during the course of 2020, because at one time or another, I think we only had one store that was permanently open throughout the pandemic, which was our store in Sweden, because they didn't go into lockdown. So it's being empathetic with our customers. And although the volume of, for example, the volume of emails that we sent out in 2020 went up significantly in comparison to 2019, a lot of those messages weren't necessarily pointing people to buy products. Yes, the message was there, but a lot of the messages we talked to were around, just providing those playlists. So at home, how could you listen to some music that we enjoy and we think that you might enjoy? What other experiences what other content could we deliver that might make your day a little easier? So the sharing of recipes, the how to look after yourself. And of course that just enhances the brand and keeps you front of mind, because we're not a product that you buy every day of the week. So we're not the cheapest product in the world, and a lot of our customers would go into a store to buy our product. So it's there, being front of mind, being ready whenever a customer wanted to buy some of our hand wash or hydrator, whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So as the world has kind of shifted, what trends in consumer behavior are of particular importance to you and marketers, and how are they consumer consumption of media is different now as well, and how is this impacting your marketing and your media buying?
I think the big difference for us is obviously how people are accessing that media. Yeah, so it's no longer now not restricted to where I've been previously. We've always looked at the right times of the week to target customers, whereas for the past year, that's been thrown out the window. No longer do you have the commute with which you at the time which you consume some of your media. So that 2-hour window that you wanted to talk to people, talking to people at the weekends, we should be targeting them at lunchtime. That's just gone out of the window, really. And it's been much more around, in CRM, it's been a lot about exploiting the knowledge that you have, right? And optimizing what you have, because you want to make sure that you're targeting at 11 a.m. as opposed to 12 a.m. because that's what the data tells you. The last year has been much more about exploring the different channels and timings and about when best to communicate with the customers. And I think that because we genuinely do have a very loyal customer base, we have those communications that arrive in people's inboxes or arrive on their Instagram feed, and people actually seek out our content because they love the brand, and they know that the content that we send them isn't always a selling message. So there's usually something there that entertains, as we would call it in the marketing world. But normally with us, it is a piece of content that is driven by our cultural interests, whether that be literary or cinematic or culinary. So there's always something there that a customer might find interesting, as opposed to a big arrow saying buy this product, which we would never ever.
Mm-hmm. So as you talked about your role with CRM, how does innovation play into that position?
So I guess the innovation piece for me is a challenge with Aesop, because of everything that I talked about in terms of us being quite a humble, not a shouty brand, not driven by gimmicks or fads, being quite reserved. And if you walk into one of our stores, it is a very calming, subtle experience. And so we tried to replicate that on all of our channels. So being gimmicky stuff and being innovative in that way doesn't really appeal to us as an organization. So for me, innovation is actually how do I look at our technology stack? How do I look at the data that we've got, an understanding of our customer, and combining that with what we feel is the right thing to do. So we're innovative in that respect, in terms of being very ultra conscious of our customers. We have very strict rules in terms of the number of communications that we'll send out to a customer, and they have a pretty good reason as to why we might go over that cap. So we're very precious with our time and make sure that that the creative is as amazing as it can be. So for us, our creative innovation is as equally important as the way that we use our tech stack and our data. And I think that comes through with if you look at our content. I've been here for just shy of 2 years, and the first thing that I saw was that I couldn't understand why it took us so long to get a communication out of the door. And it's because we are so, you use the word precious, but not in that sense. It's because we care about the content that we send out. So we make sure that it's 100%. And we try to find the right balance between the perfection that we seek, but getting commercially relevant messages out. So we're innovative in that sense as well. And then from a CRM perspective, what's important for us as well is the way that we communicate internally with our internal customers. So we're a brand who have been built over the last 30 years because of our retail stores, because of the conversations that our consultants have with our customers. And if anything, we're very traditional because our consultants are our CRM, right? They are our loyalty and subscription mechanisms, but it all sits in the consultant's mind, and they're amazing at that. They're amazing at recognizing that repeat customer. So there was and there's a continued internal communication piece around, okay, so how do I explain to the business what CRM is all about, and how it's not about negating that conversation and the relationship between customer and store and consultant. It's about extending that conversation outside of the store and encouraging customers who might seek further guidance to come back into those stores. So innovation for me is around providing the tools and resources for our regional teams to become architects of their own success, because no one knows the customer as well as the regional marketing teams. There's no point in me in London pontificating to the team in Hong Kong or the team in Melbourne about their customers. They know them best. But also communicating internally in a very Aesopian fashion what CRM is all about and what it means for Aesop, even to the extent where we've created a CRM manifesto video, which I think we have a version of which we can show.
Yes, Vishal, are we ready to roll the video? Thank you.
So you can probably sense the Greek theme in everything that we do.
That's absolutely inspiring. So, talk about this movement and this really focus on nurturing the customer and it really, when I look at that, I see that you want to deliver value in exchange and seeing these not consumers as consumers, but really as people and as, your customers that you want to have a relationship with.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a term in the animation which is anagnosis, which
I saw that.
yeah. So I often have to explain that term internally as well. So anagnosis is so in Greek literature, and plays were very flourished. So anagnosis is the point in a play where the true identity of an actor, of a character, comes to life. Yeah, so it's the moment in a Greek play where someone's found out that they're sleeping with their mother-in-law or that they've killed their father by mistake. So it's that identifying the customer and their real needs and wants and who they are that we're putting front and center in terms of everything that we want to deliver as a brand through CRM.
I love that. So we were talking yesterday about how when you look at customers, and loyalty is obviously very important to this brand, particularly as you're really engaging and building this long-term relationship with people. But you said that you looked at loyalty in different ways, that there are different kinds of loyal customers. So I'm curious about that. Some, brands, there's just loyalty and maybe acquisition, but you guys really look carefully at loyalty. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I think it is that age-old nugget that whether you are in CRM, loyalty, whatever, retention, the definition of loyalty. And from my perspective, there are different ways of defining loyalty, and it's when you walk into one of our stores, you are not treated differently depending on who you are. Because the consultant will remember who you are if you're a regular customer. But for me, I want to value customers. Yes, of course, I want to recognize if I look in your bathroom cabinet and you have a cleanser, a toner, and a hydrator that are all from the Aesop range, and you come in once a month and buy our product. But for me, of equal importance is the fact that you have one treasured product, right? And it might be, for a man, it might be the post-shave lotion that we have. But twice a year, for the last 5 years or last 10 years, you always come back and buy that product. So length of tenure is important for me. But also, how do we recognize the fact that, yes, you've shopped with us for the last 5, 10 years consecutively, and it's only one product. So you are loyal to that product. So how do we make sure that we recognize that? How do we recognize your loyalty? Because you know what, you might not even buy the product for yourself, but gifting season, as we come up to, the last quarter of the year, you use us as that gifting destination, and you always come back to us. And so, genuinely, how do we spend 12 months making sure that you don't forget and come back to us every November and December to do that? But also, loyalty is, even if you don't buy our products, but what if you love our content so much that you share it on Instagram, or you share the emails, or through whatever channel? Again, and even bizarrely enough, because our stores are so amazing, we literally have architecture students who just visit our stores, right? So, and they go around the world visiting our stores. So again, because you buy into the ethos of our architecture, how do we recognize that? And we want to tap into all of those different types of conversation and recognize those, and recognize those in perhaps in a slightly different way, but again, making sure that the time, money, and thought that people spend with us, we reward or recognize in some way. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about your retail stores, and you started back in the 80s with one store in Melbourne, in 2003, you had your first store in Melbourne. And now you have about 250 stores globally. So can you talk about the journey, how you got there? And also, retail is definitely going through a transformation, and what you think the future will look like for retail.
So our story started in 1987 when our founder Dennis actually had a hair salon in Melbourne. I won't spend too much time talking about hair for obvious reasons, but so he started that in 1987. And started to create his own hair care products, his own formulations, because he wasn't satisfied with what he was buying and giving to his customers. And there's a story about how he literally fell into, so while he was providing those services, it seemed like a good idea that I think he got a manicurist into his stores to give hand treatment to their customers while they were having their hair done. And the manicurist said, "It's really a shame that you provide all these special products for their hair, but there's nothing I can use for their hands." And I think literally that night, Dennis locked himself away in the back of the store and created a formulation for the manicurist to use. But it wasn't until 2003 that we had our first standalone store, because at that point we realized that we'd like to take our customers and take our product direct to customers. We've been selling through wholesale partners and amenities prior to that, and our first store was in Melbourne. And again, that store there set the benchmark for the stores and our ethos going forward. So the dark black wooden paneling was wood that was recycled, reused from the Geelong shipyards down in Melbourne. There was a very subtle aesthetic to the store, and that has been maintained ever since. And it's since 2003 that we've, in reality, probably since 2012, that we've really accelerated the number of stores that we have around the world. And they're normally in, very neighborhoody environments. And I think that's partly because our view has always been that, yes, our products are important and how we treat the environment is important, but also our sense in how we give back to the community is important. So being in those neighborhood environments allowed us to almost get to know the deli down the road, get to know the art gallery down the road. And so we could, as we talk to customers, we talk to them about our products, but also about the fact that there's an amazing restaurant down the road, or the exhibition that's going on down at the Melbourne Print Gallery, which is up from Fitzroy North, one of our stores down in Melbourne. So that ethos has been maintained. And our stores will always be important for us. Yeah, we have about 250 stores, and we obviously we also sell through our counters and department stores, and through wholesalers and on .com. But the stores are important, and as stores reopened last year and back in and the beginning of this year, our customers genuinely rushed back to feel part of that experience again, and that experience will always be core for us. But I think that the future for not only for us as retailer, but for most retailers, is trying to find the right balance between physical and digital. Because you'll find we'll still have customers who will only buy when they walk into a retail space because they love the environment, and you'll have customers who, because of what's happened over the last 12 months, are perhaps slightly more hesitant about going into a retail space. So digital will be their bag, or actually because physically they can't get to one of our stores, because we have about 250 stores around the world, but obviously not in every city, and people are buying through .com more and more. But also, we have a number of customers, as with most retailers, who will to and sway right between the two channels. And if they're near a store, they'll walk into the store because they want that demonstration, the advice that the consultant will give, but then might replenish their order once a quarter, once a month through .com. So for us, it's about finding that balance. I think, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but it's going to be difficult to predict where that balance lies. From a CRM perspective, we are trained as CRM and as data marketeers to predict the future based on the past, right? But unfortunately, we try to base that future on a past that no longer exists, right? Because it's gone, and trying to work out what was happening in 2020 based on 2019 was a waste of time. And this year, as we move out of COVID and the world gets used to COVID as opposed to coming out of COVID, trying to base 2022 on what happened in 2020 and the beginning of 2021 is actually quite a difficult. That should be a very, very difficult feat. So for us, it's about and don't get me wrong. So the business case, the forward planning that the accountants want, still needs that forward planning. But as marketeers, it's about how do we become ever agile and having our ears to the ground for understanding what's literally going to come around the corner so that we can react very, very quickly. So that's not just for me. I think that's for all retailers, whether you're in CPG or the beauty space. It's just a thing that's going to happen from now on.
Right. And that makes so much sense. I know, and you said that in the past, when you are doing this research and you're looking and planning, you're not really looking at the category because of your branding being very specific. But now that you were doing, taking a closer look at CPG as a category in beauty.
Well, that's just, I think that's just something that inherently, because I come from the agency world, I've always been privileged to work across multiple brands, right? Whether that's a cruise operator or a high-end automotive manufacturer, restaurants, and so I'm always exposed to what other brands and sectors are doing, and so I'm very open to understanding what other people are doing, but not necessarily copying. It's just because it sparks ideas, and we are quite an innovative brand, and we do things in slightly different ways, not for the sake of being different. There's usually a reason why we're doing something, but it's making sure that I keep abreast of what's going on around the world and can share some of those insights to the regional teams as well, so that they get an understanding of what our competitors are doing. Because my view as well is that yes, we may not take much notice of what our competitors do, but our customers do, because they'll get the messages and the content that our competitors, and of course our customers are getting accustomed to the experiences and the level of service that they receive outside of our sector as well. So how do we make sure that we understand what's going on in that space as well?
Absolutely. You talk about the importance of sustainability for the brand. It's obviously, it's kind of in the brand DNA. You talk about building the first store with the sustainable local woods. And can you talk about how and being vegan from the start, back in the 80s before, and you're still not like talking about it as, kind of bragging about it, but what role does sustainability play, and how does its sort of resurgence in importance to consumers make that front of mind for your brand?
Yeah, so I guess, as you rightly say, it's something that has always been part of the brand ethic from day one. And has been having vegan products, never testing on animals. It's always been there. And last year we got B Corp status, which is an accreditation that's, global accreditation that only a few thousand companies across the world have. And that's just part of our DNA as an organization. And actually, not just with us, but we're part of the larger Natura & Co group. So our sister companies are The Body Shop, Avon, and Natura. So it's a common thread it's a common sentiment and vision that we all share in a group. So it's just inherently important to us, and we started on that journey not because it was a customer trend or something that we spotted. It was just something that was always a heartfelt, the right thing to be doing as an organization, and that will continue to go on. That now that we have B Corp status, it's not something that you kind of do once. You have to have that recognition. You have to earn that recognition every year. But I think what we are finding, is that, of course, customers are now not just looking at the product itself, but are looking at the organization, and are placing more importance on organizations that have a purpose in society. So I think that is becoming more and more important for consumers in general. And we're just fortunate that we've always had that mindset. So we're not trying to play catch up with it. It's just always been there as something that we've had as part of our brand DNA. So so I'm fortunate, because that's just something that I'm not having to kind of quickly grasp onto. The only thing we're going to try and do is we still have customers of ours, long-term customers, who don't realize that we have B Corp status or the fact that our product's vegan. So we actually do have to do a better job of talking to our customers and explaining to them that actually, we have history in that space.
You have to do that education move. That makes
Absolutely.
so much sense.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit, we talked a bit about how you guys have a partnership with Rayburn for hand sanitizer. Can you tell me about how that partnership came about and what that looks like?
Yeah, I think that originally came about because our CMO knew Christopher Rayburn from I think from the time when they did some work together at Timberland. But I think that last year during COVID, at the beginning, there was this thought in Adam's mind about how consumer habits might change over the course of the next few months, and how, when the world started to emerge from COVID and travel became a bit more widespread, the one thing that would probably change is that actually you would still probably want to have some hand sanitizer and moisturizer, hydrator close to hand. And Adam knew Rayburn because of their shared vision around sustainability and using materials and having longevity to those products as well. So that's where that collaboration came about. And this is probably the collaboration that you're talking about, which is this adventure roll kit, which is a very nice piece of work, and literally is made out of recycled cotton and has space in there for our products. It's not a product set.
Beautiful.
Right. But it's lovely because, you know, once you've used our products, you have that opportunity to use that roll up. Yes, to carry your Aesop products or carry anyone else's products if you so desire, or turn it into a mobile tech utilities case or a pencil case. And just that longevity of that bit of cotton that is recycled and will continue to be reused. And one of the other things that we've done as part of that collaboration is you can actually go to our website and download the templates for that product. So if you want to make it at home using some recycled materials that you want to reuse, then that's just another way that we want to try and be part of that ongoing conversation around sustainability and the longevity of products. It's a very exciting project, and something that was very close to both Aesop's and Rayburn's DNA, brand DNA.
Very cool. I love that product design. So we're coming to time a bit, but I definitely wanted to ask you about what you're thinking about for the back end of 2021 as a marketer. With the world shifting so much, you know, how are you guys thinking of, you know, Q3, Q4? I know you talked about agility before.
I think it boils back to the earlier question around the difficulty of trying to predict what's going to happen, right? So again, it's about being agile, and I guess it's funny. I heard an anecdote this morning, which I'll just change a little bit because it was a bit harsh in the way that I heard it this morning. But imagine that you're locked in a cellar, and you've been locked in a cellar for 5 years, and and someone comes to the door and says, "I'm going to let you out today, but only if you can tell me what the weather is outside." And you've had no access to the internet and no window. So I'm going to let you out if you can tell me what the weather is going to be today. And it turns out that probably the best answer you can give is the same as yesterday. But 60% of the time, what happens today in terms of the weather is the same as it was yesterday. So it's about not necessarily looking back at what happened a year ago, what happened 6 months ago, but having data and understanding of what the consumer is doing as close as possible to the activity that you want to deliver. And that has its challenges because, you know, tech systems and data isn't always as accessible as it can be, but it's trying to get that level of agility in your mindset that I think will stand you in good stead going forward. If that wasn't too nuanced an answer.
No, that is perfect. I love that. That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much, Gianfranco.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
I have personally huge brand loyalty to Aesop, like not just because it's vegan, not tested on animals, but it just feels and smells heavenly, and the poo drops are game changing. So I don't think anyone would ever be unhappy receiving an Aesop gift set. I mean, I think
we are fortunate. Yes.
No, brilliant. And yeah, it is an innovatively testing time, I guess, to be in marketing. I hear you on the quandary of, you know, basing your marketing plan for 2022 on what happened in 2021 and 2021. It's just too difficult. Look, very interesting conversation. Thank you, Gianfranco, for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, I am sad to say it is our very last session of the day. So welcome Victoria Netskaya, the Chief Marketing Officer for Pago FX.